I have to sell her. It's for my mom's medicine.
The morning air in rural Oregon was crisp and cold when 7-year-old Emma woke up. That bone-deep cold that seeps through windows and makes your breath visible even inside the house. But the cold wasn't what made her stomach twist into knots. It was the silence from her mother's room. The kind of silence that feels wrong, that presses against your ears like water. Emma stood in the doorway, watching her mother's chest rise and fall in shallow, hard movements. Each breath seemed to hurt, seemed to take more effort than the last. Her mother's skin had a grayish color that hadn't been there last week. Or maybe it had been, and Emma just hadn't wanted to see it. Her mother's eyes fluttered open and caught Emma standing there. She tried to smile, but even that simple movement seemed to exhaust her. "Morning, baby," she whispered, her voice paper-thin. Emma didn't answer. What could she say? That she was scared? That she had heard her mother crying in the bathroom last night? Heard her on the phone with the pharmacy, begging them to fill her prescription even though she couldn't pay? That Emma had found the eviction notice hidden under the stack of medical bills on the kitchen table? She was 7 years old, but she understood what all of it meant. They were running out of time, running out of money, running out of options. In the corner of Emma's room, curled up in a patch of morning sunlight, was Ranger, the golden retriever puppy her father had brought home 2 weeks before the accident that took his life. "So you'll never be alone," he had said, scratching behind Ranger's soft ears. "A girl needs a good dog." Ranger had been Emma's everything for the past year. Her comfort when nightmares woke her. Her companion when loneliness felt too heavy. Her reason to smile when nothing else made sense. He would sleep curled against her every night, his warm body a promise that she was safe, that she was loved, that she mattered. But Ranger was a purebred with papers. Emma had heard her mother on the phone with a breeder last month, asking about values, about what a dog like Ranger might be worth. Her mother had hung up crying, saying she couldn't do it, couldn't take away the one good thing Emma had left. But Emma had heard the number the breeder quoted, $800, maybe $1,000 to the right buyer. $800 would buy her mother's medication for 2 months, maybe 3 if they were careful. Maybe long enough for her mother to get better, to get stronger, to fight back against whatever was eating her alive from the inside. Emma made a decision that morning that would bring 150 strangers to her door. She walked to her room and sat down next to Ranger. The puppy immediately woke, tail wagging, tongue lolling out in that goofy smile that always made Emma laugh. She buried her face in his soft fur and breathed in that puppy smell, warm and clean and innocent. "I'm sorry," she whispered into his neck. "I'm so sorry." She found her mother's phone and scrolled through old messages until she found the breeder's number. Her small fingers trembled as she typed. "I want to sell my puppy. Can you help me find a buyer? I need money for my mom's medicine." The response came within minutes. "Oh, honey, is this Emma? I remember your mom calling. Bring him by this afternoon. I know someone who's been looking for a dog, just like Ranger." Emma wrote a note in her careful, childish handwriting. "Mama, I went to help. Don't be mad. I love you more than the whole sky. Emma." She drew a small heart at the bottom and placed it on her mother's nightstand. Then she clipped Ranger's leash to his collar and walked out into the cold Oregon morning. If you believe in the power of observation, in trusting your instincts, and in the courage it takes to speak up when something feels wrong, then pause for a moment, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from today, because this story will remind you that heroes come in all sizes, and sometimes the smallest voices carry the most important messages. The breeder lived 3 miles away. Emma had walked to her house once before with her mother, back when things were better, back when they were just visiting to see Ranger's littermates. She remembered the way, down the main road, past the feed store, left at the church with the white steeple, then another mile along the rural route where farms stretched out on both sides. Ranger trotted beside her happily, thinking this was an adventure, thinking they were going to the park, or maybe to see other dogs. He had no idea he was walking toward goodbye. The first mile was easy. Emma counted her steps to keep her mind busy. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The rhythm helped, kept her moving forward instead of turning around and running home. The second mile was harder. Her fingers were numb from the cold. She had forgotten gloves. Hadn't thought about how long she would be outside. Hadn't planned beyond getting Ranger to the breeder and getting money for medicine. Cars passed occasionally. A truck slowed down. The driver, an elderly man with concerned eyes, rolled down his window. "You okay, little one? You need a ride somewhere?" Emma shook her head. "I'm okay. My aunt lives just up the road." The lie tasted bitter, but she couldn't accept help. Couldn't risk someone calling her mother or asking too many questions. She had to do this alone. By the third mile, Ranger had stopped trotting happily and started looking up at Emma with confusion. He could sense something was wrong, the way dogs always can. He pressed against her leg as they walked, offering comfort even though he didn't understand why. Emma's eyes burned with tears she wouldn't let fall. Not yet. Not until it was done. The breeder's house appeared around the final bend. A small ranch-style home with a large yard where several dogs played behind a fence. The breeder, a woman named Margaret with kind eyes and weathered hands, was already standing on the porch. She must have been watching for them. "Emma," Margaret said softly, coming down the steps. She knelt in front of the little girl and looked into her eyes. "Does your mother know you're here?" Emma's chin trembled. "She's too sick to stop me. I heard you tell her how much Ranger is worth. I need that money. I need it now." Margaret's face crumpled with sympathy and something else, recognition, maybe understanding. She had seen desperation before, but never in someone so young. "I have a buyer," Margaret said carefully. "But Emma, are you absolutely sure? Once you do this, once Ranger goes to his new home, it's done. You understand that." Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. She knelt down and wrapped her arms around Ranger one last time. He licked her face, tasting the tears that finally spilled over. His tail wagged because his girl was holding him, because he loved her, because he didn't know this was goodbye. "Be good," Emma whispered into his fur. "Be so good. And remember that I love you. I'll always love you." Margaret gently took Ranger's leash. She pulled out an envelope from her pocket, thick with cash. $900, she said. "I added a little extra for your mother." Emma took the envelope with shaking hands. It felt heavier than it should, weighted with sacrifice and grief and the terrible price of love. Margaret led Ranger into her house, the puppy looking back at Emma with confused eyes, not understanding why his girl wasn't coming too. The door closed, and Emma stood alone in the cold Oregon morning, clutching an envelope of cash and feeling like her heart had been cut out of her chest. But she had done it. She had medicine money. She could save her mother. Emma started walking home, the envelope pressed against her chest. She had made it maybe a quarter mile when she heard it. A distant rumble like thunder, but the sky was clear. The sound grew closer, louder, more distinct. Motorcycle engines. Lots of them. A convoy of bikes appeared around the bend. Harley-Davidsons, gleaming chrome, catching the morning light. They were riding slow, almost like they were looking for something or someone. The lead bike, a massive road king with an older man at the controls, slowed as it approached Emma, then stopped completely. The rider killed his engine, and one by one the bikes behind him did the same. The sudden silence was almost as loud as the engines had been. The man removed his helmet, revealing a weathered face, gray beard, and eyes that had seen everything life had to offer. He wore a leather vest with patches that marked him as president of the Hells Angels Oregon chapter. "Little one," he said gently, his voice rough but kind, "you're Emma, aren't you?" Emma froze, confused, scared, uncertain how this stranger knew her name. The president climbed off his bike and knelt down to her level. "Margaret called us. Call me specifically. She's my sister-in-law. She told me about a brave little girl who just sold her puppy to buy medicine for her dying mother." He paused, his eyes glistening with emotion Emma didn't understand yet. "She also told me your last name. And sweetheart, I knew your daddy." The world tilted. Emma's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Your father," the president continued, his voice thick with emotion, "rode with us for 8 years. He was one of the best men I've ever known. A brother in every sense of the word. We lost track of him when he got married, when he decided to settle down and be a family man. We looked for him, but he had moved, changed his number. We thought maybe he wanted out, wanted a clean break from the life. Behind him, Other bikers had dismounted. They stood in a loose semicircle, their faces showing a mixture of grief and recognition and dawning understanding. "We didn't know he died," the president said, and his voice broke. "We didn't know he had a daughter. We didn't know his family needed us." Emma's vision blurred with tears. "You knew my daddy?" "Knew him." The president pulled out his phone and showed Emma a photo. A younger version of him standing next to a laughing man with Emma's eyes and her mother's smile. Both of them on motorcycles, both wearing leather vests, both looking free and happy and alive. Emma's father. "We're taking you home," the president said firmly. "And we're fixing everything. You understand? Everything." What happened next would change Emma's life forever. The president scooped Emma up and placed her in the sidecar of his bike. She had never known it had a sidecar until he unfolded it from where it was hidden against the frame. Then he fired up his engine, and 150 Harleys roared to life behind him. They rode through town like a parade of thunder and chrome. People stopped on sidewalks to stare. Store owners came to their doors. This didn't happen in their small Oregon town. This was the stuff of movies and legends and stories people told but didn't quite believe. They rolled down Emma Street, 150 strong, their engines echoing off houses and trees. Neighbors emerged from their homes, eyes wide, hands over mouths. Mrs. Patterson from next door actually crossed herself like she was witnessing something holy. They stopped in front of Emma's small house. The president helped Emma out of the sidecar, but he kept his hand on her shoulder as he addressed his brothers. "Boys," he said, his voice carrying authority and absolute determination. "This is the daughter of Michael Hawkchun, the man who saved my life in that crash outside of Bend, the man who gave up the road to be a father, the man we lost and never got to thank." Gasps rippled through the crowd of bikers. Heads turned. Men's faces went pale, then flushed with emotion. Some started crying right there in the street. "Hawk had a little girl," the president continued. "And we didn't know. We didn't know. And now she's out here, selling her puppy to buy medicine for her dying mother. Well, that ends today. Today we become the family Hawk would have wanted for his girls. Today we show up the way he always showed up for us. Today we make this right." If this story has touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. We bring you stories that prove heroism comes in all forms, that courage isn't measured by size or age, and that sometimes the smallest voices carry the most important messages. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever noticed something important that others missed? Your story might inspire someone else. The response was instantaneous. Men surged forward, not with aggression, but with purpose. Some headed to the house, others pulled out phones, making calls. One biker, a man called Tiny who was anything but, was already on his phone with a pharmacy, his credit card in hand. "Yeah, Emma Chen's mother. What's the total for all her prescriptions?" "All of them. Every single one. I don't care what it costs. Fill everything. I'll be there in 20 minutes to pay." Another biker, named Wrench, was calling his brother-in-law, who owned a medical supply company. "I need an oxygen concentrator delivered today. Today, you hear me? I don't care if it's Sunday. I don't care what it costs." The president walked Emma into her house. Her mother was still in bed, confused by the noise outside. When she saw Emma walk and followed by this massive biker, her eyes went wide with fear. "Ma'am," the president said gently, removing his sunglasses, "I'm sorry we didn't find you sooner. I'm sorry we didn't know. But your husband was my brother, and that makes you family. That makes Emma family. And we don't abandon family. Ever." He told her everything while Emma sat on the bed, holding her mother's hand. Told her about the years her father rode with them, about the brotherhood, about the accident where her father had pulled the president from a burning wreck, saving his life, about how they had looked for him when he disappeared, never knowing he had simply chosen love and family over the road. Emma's mother cried, silent tears that streamed down her thin cheeks and wouldn't stop. The president knelt beside the bed and took her other hand. "We're here now," he said firmly. "Medical bills paid. All of them. Rent paid for the next year. Prescriptions being filled as we speak. Food, utilities, whatever you need covered. You focus on one thing and one thing only, getting better. We'll handle everything else." But the angels weren't done yet, because saving Emma's mother was just the beginning. Within an hour, the house was transformed. The stack of bills on the kitchen table disappeared. The refrigerator that had been nearly empty was suddenly packed full. The broken heater that hadn't worked all winter was being repaired by a biker who turned out to be a licensed HVAC technician. The president made one more phone call. "Margaret, it's me. That puppy you just bought from a little girl named Emma. What would it take to get him back?" 2 hours later, a truck pulled up to Emma's house. Margaret stepped out, and in her arms was Ranger. Emma's scream of joy could probably be heard 3 blocks away. She ran down the porch steps and threw herself at Margaret, who laughed and handed over the wiggling, tail-wagging puppy. "He's yours," Margaret said, her eyes twinkling. "Always was, always will be." And these gentlemen made a very generous donation to my rescue fund to make sure no child ever has to sell their dog for medicine again. Emma buried her face in Ranger's fur and sobbed. Relief and joy and overwhelming gratitude poured out of her in ways that words couldn't express. Her mother watched from the doorway, supported by 2 bikers who had helped her walk outside, tears streaming down her face. The president knelt beside Emma one more time. "Your daddy loved you more than anything in this world. He gave up everything he knew, everything he was, to make sure you had a good life. We're just making sure his sacrifice meant something. Making sure you and your mother have what you need." Over the following months, Emma's mother got better. The medication worked. The oxygen helped. The lack of stress, the absence of crushing debt and impossible choices gave her body the chance to heal. She grew stronger, healthier, more alive with each passing week. The bikers became family in every way that mattered. They took turns visiting, making sure Emma's mother was never alone. They drove Emma to school, showed up for conferences, and fixed things before they even broke. They were there for the big moments and the tiny ones, because that's what family does. Every year on the anniversary of Emma's desperate walk, the Hells Angels Oregon chapter hold a memorial ride for her father. They start at Margaret's house, past the spot where the president first learned the truth, and end at Emma Street. 150 bikes rumbling like a promise kept. Emma is 11 now, an honor roll kid who volunteers at Margaret's rescue and dreams of becoming a veterinarian. Her mom is healthy again, working full-time, smiling with the ease of someone given a second chance. And Emma has 150 uncles who have taught her to change a tire, stand her ground, and notice people who need help. The president still wears her father's road name over his heart. A reminder that Hawk's legacy lives in every bill paid, every family supported, every moment they show up. Emma's story spread through the biker world as a reminder that goodness exists, that family is chosen, and that brotherhood isn't about DNA. News crews wanted interviews, but the family always declined. This wasn't for cameras. This was theirs. But the neighbors knew. The pharmacy workers knew. The teachers knew. They had seen the way these leather-clad giants cared for one little girl. A child who once walked alone now has an army behind her through homework struggles, school bullies, health scares, and every hard moment life throws her way. Because when the Hells Angels call you family, it means forever. Emma's father gave up everything to protect her, and in doing so, gave her something unexpected, a backup family forged in chrome, leather, and loyalty. Sometimes that looks like 150 Harleys rolling down a quiet street for one brave little girl. Today, in a home once filled with fear, but now full of laughter, a golden retriever puppy sleeps beside the girl who almost gave him up. On the wall hangs a photo of her father, framed by men who fix engines, broken things, and broken hearts. His brothers never forgot him. His love lives on in every kindness they offer, because family never rides alone. And in the Oregon chapter, that's more than a saying. It's a promise. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, share it. Subscribe for more tales of everyday heroes and quiet courage.